Today, Binance addresses its emergency fund fluctuations following the charges against the crypto exchange. The SEC asks for more time to respond to Coinbase regarding crypto clarity. And the Bittrex global CEO weighs in on what regulatory advancements in Europe mean for the industry as a whole. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Pippa Stevens. Crypto prices reacting to the Fed's decision to keep interest rates unchanged amid the central bank's more than year-long campaign of rate hikes. The Fed is also projecting 2 more rate hikes this year. As of 2 Eastern, Bitcoin traded around the $26,000 level, Ether traded around $1,700, and Solana traded around $15. The price moves also come one day after the latest CPI data showed more signs that inflation was cooling. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. First, Binance and the SEC were ordered to start negotiations today, a day after a U.S. federal judge rejected the agency's request to order a freeze on Binance U.S. assets. CoinDesk reported that during a hearing yesterday, the judge said that there was absolutely no need for such an order if the parties could agree on limits. Now, yesterday, we told you that Binance U.S. said the SEC's attempt to freeze its assets would pretty much put the company out of business. One day after the SEC's lawsuit into claims that Binance operated an unregistered securities exchange and misled investors over risk controls, the agency asked a court to freeze the company's U.S. assets. It argued that the move was necessary to protect customer funds because Binance and Binance U.S. had disregard for U.S. law and regulatory oversight. Meantime, Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao tweeted yesterday that Binance has not sold either Bitcoin or its native token Binance Coin after the SEC slapped the crypto company with the charges. The BNB token has lost more than 20% in value since those charges. Next, Binance's emergency fund has fallen by 11% following the SEC suit against the crypto exchange. That's according to this Wall Street Journal article from yesterday, which noted that according to blockchain addresses that Binance says hold the assets, the fund was valued at nearly $950 million at the start of the month, but then fell to around $840 million after the SEC hit the firm with charges last week. Binance set up the emergency fund called the Secure Asset Fund for Users, or SAFU, about 5 years ago to reassure customers that their crypto assets would be safe. We reached out to Binance for a comment, and a spokesperson told us the fund is intended to cover losses sustained by users due to a compromise of their Binance account login credentials resulting from a vulnerability or other deficiency in Binance's systems or security protocols. The spokesperson also noted that the value of the fund fluctuates as the market fluctuates and that it's regularly reviewed and topped up when needed. Last, the SEC is asking for more time to respond to Coinbase regarding the crypto platform's request for crypto regulatory clarity. The SEC said yesterday that it did not yet make a decision on whether the agency will answer Coinbase's petition for rulemaking and asked for 4 more months to provide a response. Yesterday's letter was in response to the court's order to the SEC, which asked the agency to address if it's denying the rulemaking. In response to the letter, Coinbase Chief Legal Officer Paul Grewal tweeted that the SEC had repeated the, quote, fallacy that the agency was yet to decide on any new regulation. He added that the letter ignored clear statements from SEC Chair Gary Gensler that the agency has no intent to issue new rules. All right, on to our main story. Crypto World's Talia Kaplan spoke with Bittrex Global CEO Oliver Linch, who is in London, about all the crypto regulatory advancements in Europe and if the recent SEC charges against crypto exchanges could mean more companies with a focus on digital assets will move to the area.
The SEC hit crypto exchanges Binance and Coinbase with charges last week. And back in April, the SEC charged Bittrex and the crypto exchange's former CEO for allegedly operating an unregistered exchange, broker, and clearing agency. So I want to start off by asking you, what is your response to the SEC charges against your company, Bittrex?
Well, so my company, Bittrex Global, was also included in the allegations against Bittrex. And we use Bittrex just to mean the US exchange, which actually is now wound down operations. Bittrex Global to mean the exchange that operates outside the US and never accepted US customers. And so that's kind of my main response is to the SEC, to anyone else. I used to have the joy of saying, one of the great things about being CEO of Bittrex Global is that because we don't offer our services into the US, we don't have any US customers, we never have and never will, we kind of don't need to worry about the drama that's playing itself out in the US. But of course, it turns out, other people took a different view. And we as a company wish we'd had an opportunity to engage with the SEC before they started their action against us. Unfortunately, the very first contact we had with them of any kind as Bittrex Global was when they gave us the Wells notice, which normally, as you know, and your readers and listeners will know, normally comes at the end of an extensive process to make sure that factual things are kind of bottomed out and companies have a chance to explain what's going on. We didn't get that chance. And then when we got the Wells notice, we asked for an opportunity to respond and to put our side of the story. And we were told, effectively, don't bother, we're just going to go ahead and sue you. And so we've never really had a chance to put our side and to defend ourselves. And now, we have those explanations, and the only place to make them is in court. So we intend to defend ourselves vigorously in court and demonstrate that, we at Bittrex Global have always prioritized doing things the right way, being compliant. We're regulated in two of the most robust jurisdictions in the world, in Liechtenstein and in Bermuda, because we take compliance and law very seriously at Bittrex Global. And so we look forward to be able to demonstrate that.
Overall, what do you think about the recent enforcement action by the SEC against crypto exchanges?
Well, I think it's creating a chaos, right? A blanket of chaos seems to have rained down in the US. No one seems to know what to do and how to do it. And so even those good actors, and there are more of us than often get credit for, but even those people that want to do the right thing literally simply don't know what it is they're supposed to do. And so there's one of the things that led to Bittrex US deciding that it just had to cease operating in the US, because if you can't do the right thing, because the rules are so unclear and so opaque, then you can't operate at all. But the real losers is not an exchange closing down or a service being provided. The real losers are the customers. The real losers are the US citizens, because they're being failed twice. Not only are they being failed because they're not going to be able to have access to the services and products that they want in crypto that other people around the world are getting, but they're also being failed because the system, if you don't create a fit-for-purpose regulatory environment, all you do is lose the protections for the individuals. And you've got to remember, compliance isn't for geeky lawyers like me or compliance officers. Compliance is ultimately there to protect customers. And what we've seen is the most successful regulatory frameworks are the ones that understand crypto, engage with crypto on its own terms, say, these are the risks, these are the opportunities, here's how to do it safely. In the US, you're trying to view it through the prism of traditional finance and say, well, is it a bit like a security, a bit like a commodity, a bit like a derivative? The answer is kind of, no, it's crypto, it's its own thing. And you're never going to be able to fit the square peg into the round hole, especially when that round hole was created nearly 100 years ago.
Now, it's important to note that in May, Bittrex US filed for bankruptcy just weeks after its operations here in America were shut down, as you noted, in response to the regulatory crackdown. Now, you're speaking with us from Europe today. A couple of months ago, EU lawmakers approved the world's first comprehensive framework for crypto regulation. This week, crypto-friendly VC firm Andreessen Horowitz announced it's expanding outside the US by opening a new office in the UK, saying the region's crypto regulation is the reason why. Do you think more crypto firms will feel compelled to expand offshore or leave the US entirely, especially amid this heightened crackdown here in the US?
Well, there's compulsion, but there's also excitement. I mean, the fact is, around the world, regulators and policymakers are realizing there's a real opportunity here. People are excited about crypto. People are excited to learn what it can do and how it can help. But they realize that the only way that it can be expanded is to do so with a robust regulatory framework. So we've seen MiCA in the EU, and Bittrex Global was one of the very few exchanges that was really in favor of MiCA from an early date. Unsurprisingly, because we're actually regulated in Liechtenstein, and MiCA is based on the Liechtenstein law, right, in many parts explicitly. So of course we're in favor of it because we voluntarily subjected ourselves to that standard, and we think being regulated to that high level is really important. But so yeah, we've got MiCA in the EU, we've got the UK with its forthcoming legislation. There was a consultation earlier this year, and we look forward to seeing what's going on with that. But there's other jurisdictions as well. We've got VARA in Dubai, we've got Hong Kong, we've got Japan. All these countries are actually getting excited and getting involved. So, yes, there's compulsion to leave the US, and I think that's now so clear. If it wasn't before, there's this hostile, uncertain fog of an environment in the US. But this isn't slumping off into the corner. This is companies saying, right, we're going to seize this opportunity, and it's jurisdictions around the world saying we're going to seize this opportunity and actually create an environment where you can get regulated, you can do the right thing in the right way, whilst opening up all these opportunities to people that previously didn't have access to them.
So in general, what is your outlook for crypto? What do you think is in store for the future of digital assets, especially with everything going on in the background here in the US and around the world?
Well, I think we're at a real crossroads. I think we are seeing this two-speed approach. And whilst it's tempting sitting outside the US to say, well, if the US wants to do what it's doing, pull down the shutters and pretend it doesn't exist, that's naive. That's not going to happen. The fact is the US has so much going for it in terms of expertise, entrepreneurialism. You got the entire financial center out in New York that just cannot be ignored. You can't pull down the shutters and pretend America doesn't exist. So it's all about how you create an environment where crypto can actually take its place amongst traditional finance participants and say, look, we are just a part of finance as a whole. We're a new, innovative, exciting part, but that doesn't mean we're some kind of peripheral niche interest. Actually, nowadays, that might have been true 10 years ago when Bittrex was first set up. That's not true anymore. And so what we need to do is create a path for that, allowing crypto to take its place at the grown-ups table. And the only way you do that is by demonstrating that we are just as regulated, just as compliant, subject to the same principles and the same standards as traditional finance. We're seeing moves like that already. We're seeing coordination at the G20 level, at the G8 level. And actually, I think it's inevitable that the US will get on board, even if it doesn't necessarily want to politically, because that's the best way to protect its citizens. And say what you will about the environment in the US, the one thing that drives politics, legislation, and regulation across the board is a desire to protect citizens. And the best way to do that is to create a bespoke, fit-for-purpose regulatory regime that says, this is how you do crypto safely.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World today, but we are back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.